Muhammad was born in 570 CE in the town of Mecca. His name means to raise or to glorify in Arabic. His father died before he was born, so his mother, keeping with Meccan tradition, entrusted him to a nurse that took care of him during his early childhood. When Muhammad was 5 or 6 years old, his mother took him to Yathrib, an oasis town a few hundred miles north of Mecca, to stay with relatives and visit his father's grave there. When his mother died on the way home, Muhammad was orphaned, so Muhammad's nurse took him back to Mecca and gave him to his paternal grandfather, Abdul al-Muttalib. He was one of the most respected leaders of Mecca. When Muhammad was 8 years old, his grandfather died and he went into the care of his paternal uncle, Abu Talib. When Muhammad was a boy, he often worked as a shepherd to help pay his keep, as his uncle was not very wealthy. As Muhammad became older, he transitioned to helping his uncle, who was a merchant, in his caravan. Some of the merchants started calling him El Armin, or the one you can trust. In his early 20s, Muhammad started working for a wealthy Meccan trader named Khadija bint Khawwald. Muhammad got married to Khadija in 595. He was 25 and she was 40 years old. As time went on, they wanted to have kids. They had 6 children, 2 boys who died in infancy and 4 daughters. Mecca became a prospering trading area with good clan leaders who were successful traders. Mecca's new wealth and materialism unsettled Muhammad. He began making trips to a cave outside of town, meditating and fasting. Once, while he was meditating, he was visited by an overwhelming power and instructed to recite words of such beauty and force that he and others slowly attributed them to Allah, or God. Muhammad had messages to tell his tribe. These messages would be gathered and made into the Quran, which is known as Islam's sacred scripture. The message was relatively monotheistic, and for many years the Quraysh was Mecca's dominant tribe, so they banned trading to Muhammad's people, which put them into an almost famine condition. At the end of the decade, Muhammad's wife and uncle died, and the people of Mecca tried to assassinate Muhammad. In the year 622, Muhammad and a few hundred followers left Mecca and traveled to another place called Yathrib, the same place where his father was buried. The leaders there were facing a civil war, and they invited Muhammad to be their mediator. Yathrib soon became known as Medina, the city of the Prophet. Muhammad was here in Medina for 6 more years. He also made the first ever Muslim community, and he slowly gathered more and more people to join his side. The Meccans were not happy about Muhammad's growing amount of followers. These tensions led to multiple skirmishes and 3 major battles. The Muslims won the first one, called the Battle of Badr, March 624, lost the second, the Battle of Oud, March 625, and outlasted the third, the Battle of the Trench and the Siege of Medina, April 627. In March 628, a treaty was signed by both sides recognizing the Muslims as a new force and allowing them to move freely in Arabia. By now, the balance of power had shifted radically away from once powerful Mecca, toward Muhammad and the Muslims. In January 630, they marched on Mecca and were joined by tribe after tribe along the way. They entered Mecca without bloodshed, and the Meccans, seeing the tide had turned, joined them. In 630, Muhammad returned to Medina. In the next 3 years, he consolidated most of the Arabian Peninsula under Islam. In March of 632, Muhammad returned to Mecca one last time to perform a pilgrimage, and tens of thousands of Muslims joined him. After the pilgrimage, he returned to Medina, and 3 months later, he died on June 8, 632, due to a brief illness. He was buried in a mosque at Medina. Within 100 years, Muhammad's teaching and way of life had spread from the remote corners of Arabia as far as East Indochina and as far west as Morocco, France, and Spain.